Rankin is a neighbor of mine, so don't throw anything at me. All right? We actually go back a long ways, and I have him to thank, as well as the club, for the invitation to speak. You know, he had asked me, or kind of told you all, that I was going to talk to you about pursuits. And as much as I'd like to do that, I think I owe you an explanation for why the change. Pursuits and what's going on around the country with pursuits, it's just not sexy. You know, they're bad, and there's a lot to be said about pursuits and the economic loss, but also the loss of life, and I certainly don't want to sensationalize that. I think talking to you about what the Highway Patrol does, for some it will probably be an education, others it will just be a refresher and a reminder, so I promise and hope not to bore you. I think the next time I come, though, I will talk to you some about pursuits. I'll bring some videos and some things that might make you laugh. But we are, when I say we, I say the women and men of the Ohio State Highway Patrol are very proud to be here to talk to you. I'm a former Rotarian. I was a Rotary member in Lancaster as a new post commander. So I appreciate and respect what Rotarians do. So I'll get through the remarks, and I promise I'm an open book. If there's a question you want to ask, we'll try to leave some time for that. But feel free to ask me anything, because the women and men of the Highway Patrol are here for you. And we exist because of the support that we get from the community. And we're all involved in trying to make this world a better place, a better state to live in, work in, and drive in, of course. All right, so with that, I'll get started. Thanks for the invitation. Rotarians are some of the most service-oriented people that I know, and I say that in truth because I've served. Many children, people, and communities have benefited from your service, and I applaud everything you do to make Columbus, our state, and our world a better place to live. I want to share with you some information about the patrol and the great work our women and men do every day. Most importantly, I want you to know how it affects us all. The Ohio State Highway Patrol is comprised of 59 posts that serve all of Ohio's 88 counties. State troopers make personal contact with over 1.4 million motorists annually and impact millions more. In addition to traffic enforcement, the patrol is responsible for the security of state government officials, visiting dignitaries, security at state facilities, and criminal investigations. The patrol also provides assistance to local law enforcement agencies during civil unrest. And I'll pause there because someone mentioned during their remarks collaboration. You know, that is one of the cornerstones of the Highway Patrol and why we exist, is to help others in the law enforcement community as well as the community at large. Our mission is to protect life and property and promote traffic safety and provide professional public safety services with respect. Although personnel strength varies, the patrol maintains a uniform complement of approximately 1,600 troopers. But the troopers can't do what they do without the support behind the scenes of the over 1,000 support personnel that make life for troopers very much worth living, especially when it comes to communications and our dispatchers. But you know, troopers in gray get all of the praise and support, but there are literally, like I said, 1,000 people behind the scenes that actually provide the support and the nexus for troopers to go out and do what they do. And some of them are actually in the line of duty and out there on the roads themselves, and I'll speak just briefly about some of them. Load limit inspectors, motor vehicle inspectors, motor carrier enforcement inspectors, dispatchers, electronic technicians, civilian specialists, complete the patrol's personnel strength, and all of those people have their own professional disciplines that, again, make the Highway Patrol what it is. So gray shirts, as we call them, get all of the glory, but it's these people behind the scenes that you probably should know do as good a job, if not better, in some situations that protect our community. State troopers make Ohio a safer place to live, drive, and work every day by reducing traffic fatalities and removing criminals from our roads. I just left a ceremony where we awarded 64 troopers with what's called the Criminal Patrol Award. And what that means is those troopers have shown a penchant or an excellence in removing criminals from Ohio's roadways. And we reward and celebrate them to encourage them to go out and continue to do that, so that as you're sleeping at night, you can sleep and rest in peace. Traffic fatalities in Ohio have decreased 51% over the last 83 years, and that's from 1936 to 2018. The highest number of fatalities during that time frame occurred in 1969. Anybody want to guess? And Engineer Robertson, we really appreciate what you do on the engineering side, because what you do affects this number directly. Anybody, take a stab. How many people lost their lives?
5,000.
5,000? Close. Anybody else? Come on, Rotarians, I know you like numbers. All right, 2,778 people. And that is a lot of people. And you know, when you personalize it, if it's one of your family members, and someone in here has probably been touched by a traffic tragedy of some sort, it makes it personal for troopers and for our support personnel to go out and do what we do. We've had a record year where we lost 990 people, which NHTSA celebrated this state, and we, not just the Highway Patrol, but our law enforcement partners and engineering and education communities are all responsible for that. That is a record that is tough to beat. And coming in as a new superintendent, you think about some of the things that you're going to be expected to challenge and tackle. That's not one, well, I'd like for us to do better, but that's a tough one to beat. 990 people, we've never had anything like that. This year, there have been 890 confirmed fatalities, which is about a 2% decrease over 2018. In the first 10 months of this year, I'm going to tell you some of the things that troopers have done, your troopers. They've arrested more than 18,000 impaired drivers, issued more than 88,000 seatbelt citations, and wrote 6,600 distracted driving citations. However, troopers are not just involved in enforcement, and many of us talk about there's so much more to this job than just going out and writing tickets, and I'll prove to you what that means. They passed out 319,000 warnings, so they are able to be talked into warnings. All right? Just be nice. Investigated 46,000 traffic crashes and provided assistance to over 163,000 stranded motorists. As part of our safety mission, we also inspect every school bus in the state of Ohio twice a year. We want to make sure that our youngest are safely getting to and from those schools. If you didn't know it, today began National School Bus Safety Week, so it's an important week for us. And troopers across the state will continue, as we always do, to follow school buses to make sure that we don't see violations. And if we do, we take enforcement action when necessary. Our core mission of traffic safety continues, but we all know criminals use our roadways to get to and from the places that they choose to take care of their illegal activities. The immediate effects of crime are usually felt by an individual, but the community at large is also impacted by criminals and what they do. The effects of crime on our society include feelings of fear, the breakdown of social associations, a decline in property values, and lower quality of life. Crime also affects economic and workforce productivity, and it can lead to a loss of tourism and declining retail sales. Just by our positioning on the highways, troopers can often prevent crime before it occurs. And I'll say that again, they do prevent crime before it occurs. This year, our troopers have seized 84 pounds of methamphetamines, 149 pounds of heroin, 63 pounds of fentanyl, 218 pounds of cocaine, and made almost 800 arrests for illegal weapons. We all know there's a nexus between weapons, narcotics, and violent crime. By stemming the flow of illicit drugs into our communities, we can improve the quality of life for everyone. And you may not know this, but the Ohio Investigative Unit is also a component of the patrol. And I share that with you because these are women and men that don't sometimes get the due that they are deserving. They're out there on the front lines dealing with Ohio's alcohol, tobacco, and food stamp fraud laws and issues. Investigations may be related to locations selling alcohol and tobacco to underage children, and for drugs, gambling, counterfeiting, and property crimes. The work patrol employees do each day in making our roadways and communities safer, and we also work to make our future safer. Troopers and agents go to schools and educate students about staying drug and alcohol free and making good choices. As a matter of fact, one of the programs that's near and dear to me is the 5 Minutes for Life program, and troopers have gone into over 200,000 or affected 200,000 high school students with that program. And it's about choices and opportunity and the lens from which these young people see our world. Patrol employees also participate in community-oriented programs to build stronger ties to the communities and people we serve. Locally, troopers mentor children in conjunction with big brothers and big sisters, and other programs bring youth to our academy to learn the principles of service. And we're all about trying to serve, and I believe very strongly in investing in our youth. They are the future, and when I say that, I mean that with every sense of who I am as a person. People invested in me as a young kid, and I get that, so it's equally important for us as a division to invest in our young. So we are involved in programs to bring youth into the academy just so they can see when people think about law enforcement, they don't always think about the highway patrol, and it used to be we were the creme de la creme of law enforcement opportunities. And today, it took us about 6,000 people to recruit a class of 50 people. Try about 10,000 now. I mean, it's just not a profession that a lot of people are pushing their kids toward. So we're very passionate about any opportunity we get to imprint our young. We bring them into the academy and let them see what's going on. And we recently had the Buckeye Community Hope Foundation's Advocacy Outreach Program into the academy to invest in some young kids, and it's kind of cool to see the looks on their faces. They don't get what we do, other than they think we're the police and we take away people's liberties. But when you treat them with dignity and respect, and you show them that we're people too, they are magical when it comes to how they interact with us. And one of the kids, he talked about, he knew that we were disciplined and focused, but he had no clue just really what we were about. Yet another was impressed by the fact that we made him feel important just by talking to him and interacting with him. That's important for a 10, 11, 12-year-old kid to tell you that you made them feel important. So it's simple for us, and it's a reminder to us as well, that you treat others with respect and they'll return it. And we talk to our troopers about inculcating that into the environment. It's about respect. Yet another stated that he saw value in understanding and the perspective of law enforcement officers, and that's one of the keys that I take away from that, is that maybe that young kid, when he's 19 or 20, will decide that a noble career in law enforcement is something that he chooses. So what does all that mean? Lives have been saved and will be saved because someone made an impact. While I cannot say the patrol is solely responsible for all of that, I can assure you that we, troopers, have made a difference. Much like the Rotary motto, service above self, troopers are united by the motto of service with respect, and that is our motto. Both of our organizations have built a foundation of faithful service. We both have unwavering commitment to the service of others, and we all want to make an impact. We should be reminded that our organizations give us an opportunity to serve, and we shouldn't waste it. We need to encourage one another to be purposeful and to look for opportunities to have a positive impact and to keep making a difference in the lives of others. The patrol, and I'll say this again, the patrol is very thankful for organizations like the Rotary. Thank you for allowing me to speak and address you today. I tried to make that quick, so I'm open for questions. Yes, ma'am.
I work for the hotel industry in Ohio, and sadly we are a huge part of human trafficking in our state. And you touched a little bit on all the great work you're doing on drugs moving through our state, but I know that many people don't understand why Ohio is such a hotbed for human trafficking because of our highway systems. Can you just touch a little bit on what your department does to fight that and any other facts that you might have to share, because I think a lot of people don't recognize that in our state.
Yes. Great question, great commentary, and an absolute epidemic of a problem in this state. You know, it's one of those things that you don't think a whole lot about until you're exposed to it. And when I say criminal patrol, you may hear somebody say criminal interdiction. What we mean by that is we're going out and that's the type of crime we're looking for. In fact, we participate in several human trafficking task forces and have troopers assigned to work those task forces. There's so much more that's attached to it. I mean, the motel industry is a huge part of it, but so is the trucking industry. I mean, there are a lot of unknowing participants that are involved just by the fact that Ohio is the highway and byway, and it's a hub for where we go. I mean, 70 and 75 are the crossroads of America, and you can get to anywhere from Ohio. And we have a huge problem. So troopers are involved. One of the things that makes it a little unique for us to combat is that, you know, our powers and duties are limited when it comes to where we can conduct business, where troopers can go and work. We have limited jurisdiction and authority on private property, you know, and that makes it a little difficult. So we obviously assign people to task forces that get deputizations or that get the powers and duties assigned to them for the task force for whom they're working. So we are involved daily, have lots of saves, and one of the things that I'll leave you with on that whole piece is that, you know, we think of human trafficking, we think of adults. You know, there is a huge child slave labor problem as well in this country, and we have trained all of our troopers in the interdiction for the protection of children as well. So when troopers make traffic stops on a daily basis, you know, you may think it's innocuous when they're talking to you, they're asking you questions. One, we can't prolong the duration of the stop longer than about 30 minutes total. And that means if they stop a car, from the time that they start interacting with you, they have to get their citation done. If they're going to call a dog, they only have 30 minutes to do that. So when they're talking to people, they're asking questions and they're asking you questions about where you're coming from and where you're going to if they feel that something is amiss. So our people are on the watch and we are engaged and involved. OIU is a huge portion of that, the Ohio Investigative Unit. They have some unique jurisdictional authority that allows them to work in massage parlors, do things in bars, because usually it starts there. I mean, it's going to start in a place where legal commerce is taking place, and these illegal activities are a spinoff of that. So, great question, but we are involved in the fight. Yes, sir.
I've got a question about distracted driving.
Yes, sir.
Cell phone use appears to be at an all-time high. Do you ever see that being a state law for texting and driving?
I can tell you, I can't speak for the governor, but I can tell you the governor is very passionate, and he hears the cries from law enforcement that we need to have stronger laws in the state. It is very tough to address distracted driving under the current law. So I think one day that could be a possibility. Great question. Yes, sir.
I still notice elevated vehicles on the highways, and the bumpers are right even with my windshield. Do we have laws that affect that issue?
Yes, sir. We still have bumper height laws. Troopers write them fairly frequently. But, you know, I don't know. We were created for traffic, so I can't speak for other agencies. I can tell you this, too. What's interesting is, you know, there's a youth movement going on in the highway patrol. You know, I'm a dinosaur considered for most of the people. I might look young, but I'm old as dirt. But our young kids, and I say young kids because that was me saying that about 20 years ago, that, you know, why don't these old guys get out of the way and let us run the highway patrol? Well, what's interesting is, you know, about 33% of the women and men that we employ as troopers have less than 5 years of service on. You know, and that's huge. Another 16 or so percent added to that have less than 10 years of service. And what I mean by that is a perfect segue into your point, sir, or your question. You know, we have to teach these young men and women since 2011, what we did was we elevated criminal patrol to the same level as traffic safety. So we expected troopers to go out and not just write tickets and you know, stop cars for safety belts and bumper height, but we asked them to stop cars, sell traffic safety, and always look beyond the reason for the initial stop and find criminal activity. So some of the young people that we employ today, they don't know what bumper height is. So we're educating them about some of the laws that are sacred and some of the laws that really do deserve their attention. So we've had to kind of refocus them a little bit, and that's one of the things that I've done as superintendent is, you know, since 2011, we've spent a lot of time in the confines of cities. And I grew up not working the city. You had to ask permission to work the city. And in a sense, troopers have kind of abandoned some of the highways and byways that we were known to work and frequent. County roads, township roads, and I pulled them back and reallocated them out to those areas because many of us that were used to seeing troopers were not seeing troopers in those areas. So, yes, sir.
With regard to your field troopers, what percent are women, number one? Number two, what percent are minority? Number three, what percent are non-black minority?
Okay, great question. So one thing we struggle with is recruitment. So females, almost 9%, okay? Minorities, about 13%, and non-minority, or the melting pot, another 2 to 3%. So out of 1,600 troopers, you know, that's a very small percentage, you know, and that's the one thing that we struggle with, and why the investment in, especially the inner cities, is so important, or areas where, even in the rural communities, we have minorities and females that want to be involved in law enforcement, and we're trying to push them to join us. You know, one of the things that makes it tough is the days of us being the highest paid in the state, it's not the case. So you have to do this because you're passionate about it, you know. Some municipalities are paying almost $90,000 a year, and a trooper makes or starts at about $64,000 a year. And we talk to them, though, also about it's not always about the dollar, you know. It's about something that you're passionate about. So there, I saw back in the back. Yes, ma'am.
You talked a little bit about your upbringing, single mom and 3 kids, and then you talked about the mentorship that you received. So can you go into a little bit of that in terms of, you know, how that has changed or guided you to your career?
Oh, it was called a Hot Wheel track and a stick. Come on, you guys can laugh. You are all, you know what I'm talking about. Growing up in a single parent household, you know, my mom, who is still alive and still one of my best friends and biggest supporters, you know, she was very deliberate and purposeful about how we were going to live our lives as kids. So we grew up, there were 3 boys. I'm the middle of the 3 boys. And my mom was just determined, you know, even though we lived in the inner city, you're not going to be a statistic. There are great people living in the inner city, and you can make choices about the people that you're going to hang out with. And if you can't make those choices yourself, I'll make them for you. So people that visited our house got interviewed by my mom, and those friends that she wanted to discard, she discarded. But it leaves an impression on you. You know, I learned at an early age that hard work, I learned that from my mom, was what was going to carry me out of the inner city, and that became the focus. You know, I was a CEO as a kid of my own corporation at about 8 years of age, Columbus Dispatch Printing Company, I was CEO. So I started out as a, you can laugh, that's good. I just wondered if anybody would get that. So, but it taught me how to talk to people, you know, and how to be responsible, how to save. And that was where I kind of got my start. So my mom, along the way, was right there, you know. She was a 24-hour-a-day parent, and she didn't accept excuses. She was very, very serious about making sure that we were productive. So that mentorship along the way, I've had a couple of other people that were involved. George, oh my goodness, he was the owner of Ideal Beauty Supply. He gave me my first job being paid under the table. But George, the Black Art Studio over on Parsons Avenue, he's still a Columbus business owner. He gave me a lot of opportunity as a kid, and he was a really good mentor who fired me from my first job. And I got fired because he didn't want to pay me enough. So that kind of drove me too. So I've had great mentors along the way and people that just chose to invest. So that's near and dear to me, and it's important for me to pay that forward to others. That's a great question. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Is there any work being done to develop something to replace the drug sniffing dogs, like electronic devices that can sense the odors of drugs and what have you, so that each patrolman can have their own gadget with them whenever they want to check it?
Oh, ACLU, anybody in here? That's a good question. It really is a good question. So with obviously the legalization of hemp and the Farm Bill and also the legalization of marijuana that's taking place across the country, you know, one of the things that we talk about as an agency is that drugs are drugs, you know, and we have to make sure that our troopers understand what they're looking at and how to process it. Number one, having the right probable cause. So troopers should never and probably will never be removed from that equation. I've not heard of any technology that would replace that. I think it would be very hard to do that without the ACLU and others kind of jumping on that like a hot potato. I can tell you this, as far as our drug dogs are concerned, because of everything that's happened with marijuana, you know, we're not imprinting dogs anymore for marijuana to sniff. We'll keep a couple of them in service because we also provide those types of sniffs to prisons. So it's important that we be able to go into a controlled environment and still use those canines to sniff that out. But it's such an investment. The average drug dog for us costs about $13,000. So, you know, that has a profound effect on how we do business. So that's a really good question. I've not heard of any technology. Now, there is technology out there that can actually tell you what it is through the packaging. If we see something, we can take the plastic bag and put it up to this device, and it'll tell you whether it's methamphetamines, cocaine, what have you, without doing a chemical test or what's called a NIC test, where we test on the side of the road to make sure the substance we have is what we eventually end up charging the person with. Really good question. Yes, sir.
With self-driving cars on the horizon, how is the traffic patrol planning for that for their future?
That's a really good question. We talk about that almost every day, believe it or not. Because we're not a state police, you know, we're a highway patrol, we're traffic enforcement related. It will have a profound effect on what we do. And we're involved in so many other things. It's not that we're arrogant and don't think that we should be worried about that. We are worried about that. So we actually have an entire group that studies autonomous vehicles, and we actually sit on a national panel when it comes to autonomous vehicles so that we can be part of the discussion so that they don't forget the law enforcement piece of this. You know, you're still going to have specialists that investigate those crashes when they occur, and they will occur. There's a lot of great technology with it, but you're still going to have the right people doing those types of things. So it's on our radar every day. Great question. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and obviously we all have to have a reminder there to be safe on the roads as we leave here. So thank you all.